Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense. Wanted to sit down and shoot a quick Bitcoin / cryptocurrency market update video for May the 4th. Before I jump into the content, please do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, don't forget to check the description for a link where you can join the Patreon for just $7 a month. That gives you access to more frequent updates. So I wanted to sit down and shoot this video because the market has been pretty parabolic and coins have been going way up, way down, way up, way down, right? A lot is going on, and all jokes aside, it's been a pretty good time to make money, but it's also been a very risky time. So I wanted to sit down and shoot this video and kind of walk through some things that I'm saying. So first things first, before we jump over to crypto, one thing I will point out, I think it's really worth noting, and I think you do need to keep an eye on it, is the US 100 has turned over, meaning that it did indeed turn over and put in this double top. This is today's candle. That's a pretty nasty candle in the stock market. It dropped today about nearly 3%, and it's starting to pull back up now. If this daily candle closes in the next 90 minutes underneath this level, that will be a confirmed double top. Now that in itself is a little bit concerning about the stock market, or more specifically the NASDAQ. But what's more concerning is when you zoom in and take a look at the 4-hour chart and you look at the volume. See this? Low buying volume followed by high sell volume. Low buying volume, high sell volume, over and over and over again. That is indicative of distribution. The other thing about the stock market that a lot of people don't understand, and this is really critical, is the stock market is not crypto, and it doesn't work like crypto in the sense that in crypto we expect these bear markets to happen every 3 to 4 years, and we expect everything to go down at once, and that's how we know it's a bear market, and that's how the flags go up. It's time to cash everything out, yada yada yada. You may not realize it, but the stock market has been selling off for over a month now. We're just now starting to see it in the larger indexes, but individual stocks have been absolutely battered, especially these stocks that were in their own bubbles all to their own. For example, Tesla. You have people who are still super bullish on Tesla, excited about Tesla because it's $667, but reality is that was a $900 stock back in January. It actually had a 50% plus crash. Sorry, 40%. Math was off. So it crashed 40%. And if you're going by TA, when you get a crash and then you start getting an upward channel like this, what's that called? It's called a bear flag, right? And by technical analysis, what you often see after this is you see the down, the up, and the down. And that trend extension will give it a target down around $419, which is magically back around this gap right here, okay? There's a whole bunch of gaps on Tesla. Look at them all, right? But that's a story for another time. Bottom line, you have Tesla, 40% dump. Go take a look at Twitter. It gapped down a few days ago, several dollars per share, $10 per share on a $64 stock. Twitter has now fallen 34%. Go look at NIO, which was another electric car stock. NIO was sitting up close to $70 a few months ago, and so far it's had a 52% correction, crash, pullback, whatever you want to call it. Now it's consolidating. Will it go back up from here? Possibly. Will it continue down? Possibly. Right? We'll have to wait and see. Go look at Laser, another stock that was super high. It went parabolic, shot up from around $10 up to almost $50, and then boom, all the way down to mid-teens, right? 66% pullback. Go look at the darling of the stock market right now, ARK, right? Look at this. This is the ETF that everybody's so excited to stick their money into, right? It was $159.70 in February before pulling back to $104 or so, which was a dump of 33%. So the market itself, money is being moved around, and this is what's different from crypto. In crypto, a lot of people completely leave the market. They just take all their money and they take their ball and they go home, and then they wait for the market to crash, and then they come back and put the money back in. With stocks, most people are not going to completely cash out of the stock market. They're not going to say, I'm done. I'm going to cash out 100% of my stocks and go put it in my savings account or set it in my sock drawer in cash. No, they're simply going to move from the growth stocks, the higher risk stocks, over to what's called the value stocks, the stocks that are less likely to tumble in the event of a market crash. And that's what we've been seeing. We've been seeing, these investors exit these high growth, high risk stocks, booking their profits and then moving back over to more value-based stock. So just something to keep in mind. If we go back over to cryptocurrency, and more specifically, let's take a look at, let's do Bitcoin dominance. Look at this. This is pretty amazing stuff. This is actually a Bitcoin dominance chart. Bitcoin dominance is now at, roughly 46.55, lowest it's been since the summer of 2018, right? And again, this is the same type of thing that we saw in the previous bull market. Alts completely dominated Bitcoin, right? So it could be that we're up at the top here, or it could be that we're closer to the bottom. It's hard to say. What I will say about this, and this is very interesting to me, is if you were to, look at this from a technical analysis point of view, and say you were drawing some Fibonacci levels on here, right, from this little pivot high back here to this dump, this actually came up and touched this golden pocket right perfectly right here before it start moving down, which means that if we were to take a trend extension, and if this played out the way that I would play a normal stock or a normal coin, right, this thing actually has a target down at 11.51, meaning that alts still have a lot of room to grow on Bitcoin if that's the case. And we're seeing things like Ethereum get really, really strong. Ethereum, last I looked, was up almost 20% now of all dominance, right? So some of these alts could finally be coming, 18%. Some of these alts could finally be coming into their own, which is kind of what a lot of people predicted would happen as Bitcoin kind of laid the groundwork, and then alts that were better suited for certain things will kind of start to come into their own light. So we'll see how that goes. It's very, very interesting. I'm still cautiously bullish on a lot of altcoins versus Bitcoin, right? Even though versus US dollars it's a little bit sketchy, and I'm a little bit hesitant to get too overly bullish with the way the stock market looks and the way Bitcoin itself looks. But versus Bitcoin, a lot of them are looking pretty good. All right, taking a quick look at Bitcoin. Okay, so this chart is pretty heavily marked up. Let me kind of explain what everything is here. Basically, this is what I had thought was the UTAD, right? We had the breakdown if we're falling wick off. We had our retest of supply right here, and it's failed so far, right? Instead of pushing through that and flipping this back to demand, bulls failed, and this did indeed act as supply. Let's get the volume profile off of there. And so now Bitcoin is actually falling back under not just its 200 moving average on the 4 hour, but it's also lost its 50 moving average on the 4 hour. More importantly, if you look at the daily chart, the 50 daily did not hold, right? We came up to that supply, there was just too much selling pressure, and down price went. If we take a look at the volume on Bitcoin, we're still saying the same thing. Buyers are not stepping up. We're seeing increased volume on the selling candles, and we're seeing decreased volume on the buying candles. All through here you can see this. Higher, 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 boom, big sell-off, right? And the buyers are simply not stepping up. So that makes me pretty skeptical of Bitcoin at this point. It does make me think that we're probably heading lower, right? And again, the first target that I'm really going to pay attention to is what happens if we get down around that 40K area. If we put this on a daily chart real quick, this is also something I talked about in my last video. I don't know if I shared it on YouTube or if it was just in Discord and Patreon. I don't recall now. But basically the idea is I was waiting for this to pump up, test the supply, and also test this 61.8, which it did. You can see almost perfectly right here. So if this does end up playing out as a down move, it has a target down around 41,000, which again really does make a lot of sense when you consider that that happens to be right in this area back here, this previous high back here. It's right in that zone. Also, this big volume gap right here, liquidity gap, whatever you want to call it, right? It would do a nice job of filling that in. Also, by the time it gets there, if it gets there, this 200 moving average, which is the daily moving average, should be pretty close to that area. So it could be that it moves down and finds support there and then continues its bull run. I tend to think, guys, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but I tend to think that if the bulls can't step up and can't send this above this level here, if it does move back down to this 41 to 42K area, I tend to think that's probably going to be the start of the bear market, right? Meaning that it does get some type of move down to this area, gets that bounce, which is going to trap a lot of over exuberant bulls in my theory, and then we get the true markdown phase where we start moving back down toward all these old volume gaps that are still left behind. Make no mistake, this has left a hell of a mess behind with this crazy pump, right? So, and I don't want to get too macro picture here, but just keep in mind that when you look at Bitcoin, the production cost of Bitcoin right now is down around $8,000 to $10,000, depending on electricity costs, things like that. The fair market value in a lot of people's eyes is down around that $10,000 level. If we take a look at the volume profile of this run up from March until now, we can see that our volume profile has support down around the 10.2K level, which is the point of control. If we take a look at the volume profile on a larger time frame, from the bottom of the 2018 bear market till now, point of control is down around 9,500, right? No matter how we put this, volume is saying support is way down here. We also know that parabolas tend to retrace 80% if they break, so an 80% retracement of this entire move would put this back down at around, around that 15K area, which again would retest these old levels here, make perfect sense. And then, of course, if this is a true bear market like previous bear markets, and again, guys, I'm saying all this if it moves down to 40K first, right? That's the first thing. It's got to do that before any of this other stuff matters. But if this is indeed the top of the cycle, then an 84% drop, which is what it dropped in the last bear market, would put it down around 10K, which again, just makes a lot of sense. Really strong psychological level. And I think a lot of people will be waiting there to buy Bitcoin. So those are the things that I'm watching for. If it starts to move down toward that 40K level, I probably won't be overly eager to load up on spot Bitcoin. Maybe some long positions to play some bounces. But yeah, if you're a bull, I think you really need to be rooting for it to go ahead and take out the supply zone here and just continue its push upward. One thing I will say that's strange about this, and makes me kind of hesitant to say this is the top, is it's very unusual in Bitcoin's history for people to get this long, this many opportunities to sell the top or near the top. Usually with Bitcoin, it likes to do these big blow off tops, and then if you don't sell at the right time, it just comes back down hard and fast, and you're just kind of screwed, right, if you didn't get out. So for it to sit here and range like this, that's unusual of a Bitcoin top. But, anything's possible, obviously. The selling volume is still pretty strong, okay? So those are the things that I'm personally watching for. Some moving averages on there, obviously. Those supply zones, demand zones are all important. And then, of course, also just this, stock market itself. We know in the past that Bitcoin's had a strong correlation with stocks. And so if stocks do start coming down, then, it does stand to reason that Bitcoin's going to come down with them. Also, this candle, it's a pretty nasty candle, right? That's a monthly candle. It's April's candle. It closed as what I would call a spinning top. Spinning tops are, oftentimes you'll find them at the tops of moves. So for example, back here in 2019, we had a bit of a spinning top, and then, the little mini bear market, or whatever you want to call it, kicked off there. So watching this with a lot of interest. On the monthly chart, we can see that volume did start to drop in January, lower. But on a positive note for the bulls, the sell volume was not all that strong last month. Right, even though the candle itself is very, very ugly, this is not a massive sell volume candle. And it could be that this spinning top here that looks so ugly with this volume bar, it may be that long term we look back and say, that was a whole lot like September of 2017. Or that was a whole lot like March of 2017, right? Here's January 2017. There's a spinning top. Some people might have thought that was the top. Here's a spinning top in March. Here's a spinning, well, not really a spinning top over here, more of a doji, but you see what I'm saying? Like, it's really easy in hindsight to say, oh, well, that was an obvious place to get out. And in the moment, it's not quite that easy. This is still an indecision candle. It's not necessarily a top candle, right? If it takes out the top, that's a really good sign for bulls. And to me, it would say that this is going much higher, not a little bit, but much higher. And if it takes out the bottom, then to me, it says that this probably was the top. And this is probably going to go ahead and start its retracement, okay? Short term, though, like I said, 4-hour chart's a pretty simple thing. You get a 50 moving average there. It needs to get back above that. You got a 200 moving average. It needs to get back above that. And it needs to get above this zone through here. If it can do those things, then I would say that, Bitcoin probably has a pretty strong future ahead of it. And I think it's fine long term anyway. But I mean, short term, if it can get through these areas, I think it's probably going to have quite a bit of its run left, right? From a market psychology standpoint, I still got to wonder if this is thrill with euphoria to go, but we'll see, right? I think today it's hard to call Bitcoin today because you had the big sell-off in stocks, and this is probably just more of a reaction to the stock market. So time will tell, as always. And, as far as alts go, it's the same old story. a lot of these alts, you know, versus Bitcoin, they're looking really damn good. Like OMG is an example of this, right? When I look at this 12-day chart, which is what I use for position trading, all I see when I look at OMG is a W. I just see a giant double bottom sitting there, and I see a retest of that double bottom's neckline, which to me is a place where I'm typically going to look for long positions, right? Come down, test that 61.8, right into that golden pocket. I mean, a lot of altcoins still look like this versus Bitcoin, and then you take a look at like Ethereum, and you do got to wonder just a little bit, are these alts finally ready to follow Ethereum's lead and start popping off and retaking some of these gains or these losses that they've experienced over the last 3 years, right? Whereas Bitcoin's been in this raging bull market, altcoins have not been in a raging bull market. Most altcoins are still sitting down 80 to 90% from their all-time highs. So if we are to see some of these altcoins pop off, I mean, look at that. There's EOS. Look how far EOS has dropped. You know, that was kind of a darling in 2017, but it's currently down 94%. So I'm still wondering if we're going to start seeing some of these pop off. This is not a perfect W. It's not near as nice as OMG, but it is, you know, it looks like it's trying to turn a corner there. And a lot of these altcoins, Verge was another darling, right? A lot of these old school alts have really started to show some strength. That being said, Verge is a great example. This was a beautiful W, and it did have a really nice pop, but then it did fail. And I'm not necessarily saying they're going to go back to all-time highs, but I mean, it'd be nice to see a lot of these things go back up to at least their 50% retracement or a 61.8% retracement would be really great, right? Really, really big returns for people trading versus Bitcoin. Speaking of trading versus Bitcoin, one thing that I would say is a lot of people are making money on Doge, and I think it's great. Just remember to pay yourself. Okay, Doge has historically done these pumps, and every market cycle Doge has these big pumps, and then I shouldn't use Binance, it's not old enough, and then eventually what happens is it dumps. It's over and over again, right? Here's a monthly chart over on Poloniex, or however the hell you say that. I've never have figured that out, but basically they have these huge parabolic pumps, and then they'll drop 90 to 95% over and over again. Right, big pump, 76%, big pump, 89%, big pump, 92%, right, over and over and over again. So will this drop 90%? No one can say for sure, but we can say that historically speaking, that tends to be the case. This is bigger, sure. Why is it bigger? I don't know, right? Who knows why it's bigger? If I had to guess, I'd probably say it has to do with Elon Musk and all of his, stuff on Twitter. Got people excited about it, and then kind of became, its own meme. It's life of its own type of thing. But eventually, it's very likely this thing will have a very, very bad retracement, 80, 90%. And, all the people who are afraid to sell because what if it keeps going up? Those will be the people looking back in hindsight saying, gosh, I'm such an idiot. Why didn't I sell? And I'm not making fun of them. It's the same thing that I went through when I first got involved with crypto, when I had alts go up, 30, 40x, and I just sat there and held them right back down to the ground floor. Okay. One thing that really bugs me is when people act like you can't see this stuff coming. And I'm not saying that everything is, easy and that you can always see something coming, but I mean, Doge is not a big shocker. There were setups that came in, and while I hate chasing coins, and I would never condone chasing coins, if a setup is there, a setup is there, right? And in the case of Doge, I mean, the setup was there. If you look back here, this was a very easy pattern to spot, right? You've got this line of resistance all through here, and you've got it sitting here making higher lows. Now, I didn't take this trade, so just to be clear, I'm not saying, oh, look at me. I had other things going on, and I didn't even see this. But you had a breakout of an ascending triangle, right? So you could have got long back here if you were super aggressive. If you weren't aggressive, you could have got long right here on the retest of that breakout, or you could have just got long at any point along this trend line, right? A whole bunch of different reasons to go long on Doge through here. And this was 30-cent Doge. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, guys, don't misunderstand. Like, when I talk about things and not chasing markets and not FOMOing in, it doesn't mean you can't buy an asset that's pumped, in Doge's case, hundreds of, maybe even hundreds of thousands of percent, but certainly thousands and thousands of percent, you can still buy high. You just need to do it and have a legitimate reason when you're doing it. So for example, if somebody is buying through here, they can say, okay, I'm going to buy through here, and if it takes out this low back here, I'm wrong, and obviously it's probably, it's probably done going up. And they'd have a stop loss, right? So very limited risk with, big potential upside, because we do know that Doge is hot right now. We know that Elon Musk is making memes about it. He's getting ready to go on Saturday Night Live, I believe on May 8th. This is probably a case of buy the rumor, sell the news. People getting excited about him going on SNL, and the night he goes on, or the night before he goes on, it's probably going to dump to all shit. But, it's fine. You can still take these trades. You don't have to sit and wait for the market to retrace to the 61.8. You don't have to sit and wait for the market to retrace 80% or have a correction or have a bear market. What I'm saying is I don't want to make investments, long-term investments in markets that have went up thousands of percent, because long-term, I know that statistically speaking, it's very likely that those investments will eventually end up underwater. Trades, you can trade these markets every day. You can trade a coin whether it's up 1% or whether it's up 1 million percent. It doesn't matter. Bitcoin's up millions of percent from its get-go. You can still trade it and make money off of it, right? So Doge is just a really, really good example of this. If you see the pattern and you see setups and you see reasons to take a long, don't be afraid to take a long just because the price is sky high, because it can always go up. You never know how high it can go, right? Just be careful about making investments, because again, this is obviously parabolic, and we know that parabolic things tend to retrace 80%. I mean, look, this is a log chart, guys. That's a log chart. You're not supposed to see straight lines on log charts, okay? So when this thing does retrace, we're probably going to look at this. See where the 78.6 is? Good chance it's coming way back down here. So investing on Doge? Hell no, I wouldn't do it. You couldn't pay me to do it. Well, it depends on how much you pay me, I guess. But as far as trading Doge, if you want to trade Doge, why not, right? You don't have to wait. You can just trade it and trade it and trade it. So with all this being said, guys, please remember I am literally some guy sitting in a spare bedroom. Nothing in the video is financial advice. Nothing in the video is trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional financial advice from a licensed financial advisor, which I am not, before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency, the stock market, or precious metals.